The rain fell on London in relentless, grey sheets, a miserable baptism for the day's bad news. Inside the sleek, glass-walled office of the London Chronicle, Elara Vance stared at the email on her screen, her knuckles white around a cooling mug of black coffee. The message from her editor, Brenda, was terse and unequivocal. Elara. The Aethelred Pharmaceuticals story is yours. CEO Alistair Finch found dead in his office, initial reports calling it a cardiac arrest. Smells wrong. He was 52, fit, and his company is days away from a multi-billion-pound merger. I want this on the front page by the end of the week. And watch your back. I've just heard the Daily Inquiry has assigned their pitbull to it. You know the one. Elara did know the one. A cold knot tightened in her stomach. The pitbull could only be Leo Madsen. Of course it was him. In the incestuous, cutthroat world of London journalism, their paths had crossed too many times, always leaving a trail of professional carnage. He was everything she despised. A sensationalist, a headline chaser who blurred the lines between fact and salacious speculation, a man for whom ethics were a speed bump on the road to a viral story. He worked for the Daily Inquiry, a publication that valued click-through rates over truth, and he was devastatingly good at his job. She leaned back in her chair, the leather sighing in protest. Outside, the shard pierced the low-hanging clouds, a monument to a city of ambition and secrets. Alistair Finch's death was one such secret, and she intended to peel it back layer by layer. A cardiac arrest? It was the corporate world's most convenient exit. Too clean. Too tidy. Her phone buzzed, a single name flashing on the screen, Leo Madsen. She almost didn't answer. But curiosity, that most fundamental of a journalist's instincts, won out. Madsen, she said, her voice a carefully calibrated instrument of ice. Vance. I assume you've seen the memo from on high. His voice was a warm, infuriating baritone, laced with a confidence that felt unearned. Looks like we're dancing again. It's not a dance, Leo. It's a boxing match. And I don't intend to pull my punches. He chuckled, a low, rasping sound. Always so dramatic. Look, Finch's secretary is a tough nut. A Mrs. Higgins. She's not talking to anyone. But I've got a source in the Met who says the scene was unusually tidy. No signs of struggle, but also no personal effects out of place. It was as if he was staged. Elara's mind raced. He was sharing information. This was a new tactic. A trap, most likely. And why are you telling me this? Because, Elara, this story is bigger than our bylines. And because I know you have a contact in the City of London Police Forensics. Information wants to be free and all that. Maybe we can expedite the process. You want to trade sources? She asked, incredulous. I want to find the truth. My methods just have a wider audience than yours. He paused. Meet me at the Grumpy Friar, off Fleet Street. 1 hour. Come alone. Or don't. But if you don't, my headline tomorrow will be Chronicle Journalist Stymied in Pharma Death Probe. Your choice. The line went dead. Elara slammed her phone on the desk, drawing glances from a few junior reporters. The sheer audacity of the man. He was cornering her, using her own reputation against her. She had no choice. She had to go. An hour later she pushed open the heavy, oak door of the Grumpy Friar. The pub was a relic, all dark wood, stained glass, and the ghosts of 1,000 hacks. Leo was already there, nestled in a booth at the back, a half-finished pint of ale in front of him. He looked exactly as she remembered, tousled brown hair that defied grooming, a 5 o'clock shadow that was too precise to be accidental, and eyes the color of weathered denim that missed nothing. He wore a rumpled corduroy jacket over a dark shirt, the uniform of the carefully curated scoundrel. She slid into the booth opposite him, not bothering to take off her raincoat. Talk. Always a pleasure, Elara. He pushed a second pint towards her. She ignored it. Fine. Here's what I have. Finch was supposed to sign off on a damning internal audit the next morning. The audit concerned trial A7-29, their new wonder drug for cardiac arrhythmia. The same thing they're claiming killed him. Ironic, no? Elara's pulse quickened. This was more than she had. This was a lead. What was in the audit? That's the million-pound question. My source at Aethelred is scared. They won't say. But they did say that the chief financial officer, a man named Robert Croft, has been acting very strangely since Finch's death. Canceling meetings, sudden vacations. So you think Croft is involved? I think everyone is involved until proven otherwise, Leo said, taking a long swallow of his ale. Now, your turn. Your forensics contact. What can they tell us about the scene? The official report won't be out for days. Elara wrestled with her conscience. This was collusion with the enemy. But the enemy had a point. The story was bigger than their rivalry. A CEO was dead, a merger worth billions was pending, and a drug meant to save hearts might have been killing people. The preliminary tox screen came back clean, she said, the words tasting like ash. No alcohol, no recreational drugs. But they're running a more comprehensive panel. Looking for industrial compounds. Leo's eyes lit up with a predatory gleam. Industrial compounds? You mean like something that could be accidentally inhaled in a lab? Or administered? I don't know, Leo. That's all I have. She stood up, the meeting already feeling like a betrayal of her principles. This doesn't make us partners. This is a temporary and deeply regrettable information-sharing agreement. He raised his glass in a mock toast. To a mutually beneficial rivalry. As she walked out into the relentless rain, Elara felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. She had just crossed a line, and she had a terrifying feeling that there was no going back. The next 72 hours were a frantic blur of clandestine meetings, dead ends and sleepless nights. Elara, operating with the disciplined focus of a surgeon, used her network of trusted sources within the financial and regulatory world. She confirmed Leo's tip about the audit. It existed and it was a ghost, deleted from the company's main servers, its physical copy missing from the corporate archives. The few lower-level employees who would speak to her did so in hushed, fearful tones, their sentences trailing off when asked about Trial A7-29. Leo, meanwhile, worked the shadows with the grace of a cat burglar. He charmed a junior lab technician at Aethelred with his disarming smile and a convincing story about writing a piece on the unsung heroes of pharmaceutical innovation. He learned that several vials of a specific chemical stabilizer, used in the A7-29 trials, had gone missing from a high-security storage fridge 2 days before Finch's death. The stabilizer itself was harmless, but when combined with a common over-the-counter decongestant, it could form a compound that mimicked the effects of a massive, fatal heart attack. It left the system within hours. He called Elara late on the third night. It was poison, he said without preamble. Sophisticated, untraceable, and administered by someone who knew his habits. Finch took a decongestant for his sinuses. Religiously. Elara, sitting in her dimly lit apartment surrounded by stacks of notes, felt a chill. Do you have proof? Not yet. But the missing stabilizer is the key. Croft had the access codes to that storage unit. Circumstantial, Elara countered, though her mind was reeling. We can't print that. It's libel. We need the audit. That's the motive. What was so damning about that drug? Their conversations had become a strange, nightly ritual. A battle of wits had morphed into a grudging, tactical alliance. They were two rival generals sharing intelligence to win a war, all the while knowing they would eventually have to face each other on the battlefield. Elara found herself reluctantly admiring his tenacity and his almost supernatural ability to get people to talk. Leo, in turn, was forced to acknowledge the depth of her integrity and the power of her analytical mind. Her insistence on corroboration and hard evidence, which he had once dismissed as plotting, had saved him from publishing several premature and erroneous conclusions. The turning point came from an unexpected synergy of their methods. Elara, through a former classmate now at the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, MHRA, unearthed a buried file. It was a preliminary analysis of A7-29, flagging statistically significant anomalies in a subset of trial patients, irreversible neurological damage. Aethelred had seen it and had chosen to bury it, recategorizing the data as non-reportable side effects. The audit Alistair Finch had commissioned was his attempt to come clean, to stop the drug before the merger and its subsequent global launch. Meanwhile, Leo's lab technician, now feeling like a co-conspirator in a noble cause, managed to get a photo of the sign-out log for the storage fridge. The night the stabilizer went missing, the log was signed by R. Croft, but the signature was a clumsy forgery. However, the security camera footage for that specific corridor, for that specific 2-hour window, had been mysteriously erased. They met again at the Grumpy Friar, the air between them now thick with a shared, electric purpose. We have the motive, Elara said, her voice trembling with a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Finch was going to sink the merger and the drug. Croft and probably others on the board couldn't let that happen. The merger is their golden parachute. And we have the method, Leo added, sliding his phone across the table with the photo of the log. The forgery is bad. We can get a handwriting analyst. And the erased footage? That's proof of a cover-up in itself. They looked at each other, and for the first time, there was no animosity, only a stark, clear understanding. They had the pieces. Now they had to write the story. My editor will want to run it, Elara said. But we'll need to go through legal. It will take time. Time we don't have, Leo argued. The merger vote is in 48 hours. Once it's done, Croft and the others are untouchable. They'll have their money and A7-29 will get pushed through, potentially harming thousands. We have to publish tomorrow. We can't. We don't have a confirmed source for the MHRA file, and the signature analysis isn't done. It's not enough. It has to be enough. Leo's voice rose, drawing a look from the barman. This is why you people at the Chronicle are so slow. You wait for the stars to align while the world burns. Sometimes you have to throw a punch and see what falls out. And sometimes, Leo, you throw a punch and you hit an innocent bystander. Journalism isn't a game. It's a responsibility. The old fissure had reopened wider than ever. The temporary alliance was cracking under the weight of their fundamental differences. Fine, Leo said, his face hardening. He stood up, throwing a 20-pound note on the table. You do it your way. I'll do it mine. A cold dread washed over Elara. Leo, don't. You'll get sued. You'll ruin the real story. We'll see who has the real story tomorrow morning, Vance. He walked out, leaving her alone with the terrifying certainty that everything was about to blow up in their faces. The next morning, Elara's phone exploded with notifications before her alarm had even gone off. The Daily Inquiry's front page was a digital bomb. Pharma killer? Aethelred CFO linked to CEO's mysterious death. By Leo Madsen. Sources reveal Robert Croft, CFO of Aethelred Pharmaceuticals, is the prime suspect in the poisoning of CEO Alistair Finch. A forged signature on a chemical log and deliberately erased security footage point to a cold-blooded corporate assassination to secure a multi-billion-pound merger. Elara scanned the article, her heart hammering against her ribs. It was all there. The missing stabilizer, the forgery, the erased footage, the motive of the merger. He had even alluded to the troubled drug trial, though he lacked the hard evidence of the MHRA file. It was a masterpiece of sensationalist journalism, brave, reckless, and infuriatingly effective. Within an hour, the news channels were leading with the story. Aethelred stock was suspended from trading. Robert Croft's lawyer released a statement vehemently denying the allegations and promising to sue the Daily Inquiry for defamation. Elara was summoned to Brenda's office. Her editor's face was granite. He scooped you, Elara. He's got the whole city talking and we've got nothing. I thought you were on this. I am on it, Brenda. My story is better. It has the MHRA data. It has the proof of the drug's failure. It's not just about a murder, it's about a public health crisis. Madsen's story is a firework. Mine is the demolition charge. Then finish wiring the charge and get it to me by noon, Brenda snapped. And for God's sake, find a way to make it clear we're ahead of this, not chasing that tabloid hack. Elara returned to her desk, seething. Leo hadn't just published, he had forced her hand. Now she had to publish a story that was only 95% complete, all because of his impatience. She was about to call him and unleash a torrent of fury when her phone rang. It was him. Don't you dare, she began. Elara, shut up and listen. His voice was sharp, stripped of its usual lazy confidence. I was wrong. The words were so unexpected they silenced her. Croft's lawyer just held a press conference. He produced an airtight alibi. Croft was at a private dinner with half the board of directors at the time the stabilizer was taken. There's video and credit card receipts. He's clean. Elara's blood ran cold. What? I was set up. My source, the lab tech, he was fed the information. The forgery was a plant too obvious to be real. They knew I'd run with it. They used me, Elara. They used my reputation to point the finger at the wrong man, to create chaos and discredit the investigation. The full, horrifying brilliance of the plan dawned on her. Leo, the reckless pitbull, had been deliberately unleashed on a false scent. Now, his credibility was in tatters and the real killer was still out there, laughing. My God, Leo? I'm probably getting fired today. But that's not the point. The point is the real killer is still there. And he's just bought himself breathing room. He took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. In that moment, all of Elara's anger evaporated, replaced by a cold, clear resolve. He had been an arrogant fool, but he was right about one thing. The story was bigger than either of them. They were both victims of a master manipulator. Meet me, she said. My place. Now. And bring everything you have. When he arrived, he looked like a different man. The swagger was gone, replaced by a hollowed-out exhaustion. They spread their notes out on her living room floor. His scrawled interviews and leaked documents, her meticulously organized timelines and official reports. For hours, they worked in silence, two broken halves of a whole, trying to fit the pieces together. We assumed it was Croft because he had the most to gain financially, Elara mused, staring at the board of directors list. But what if the motive wasn't just money? What if it was fear? Or ideology? The head of R&D, Leo said, his voice quiet. Dr. Anya Sharma. She's the one who designed the A7-29 trial protocol. Her life's work. If Finch was going to expose it as a deadly failure, it wouldn't just be a financial loss for her. It would be a professional annihilation. Elara's head snapped up. Dr. Sharma. The brilliant, fiercely protective scientist who had given them both polite, unhelpful interviews. The one person who had the knowledge to devise the perfect, untraceable poison. The one person with unrestricted access to the lab and the authority to erase security footage. She played us, Elara whispered. She fed you the Croft narrative knowing you'd go for the jugular. She used our rivalry against us. It was the final, ugly truth. Their professional war had been their greatest weakness, a vulnerability expertly exploited. We go to the police, Leo said. Now. With all of this. No, Elara said, a new, steely determination in her eyes. We write the story. The real story. Together. The following day, a single byline appeared on the front pages of both the London Chronicle and, in a stunning act of contrition and collaboration, the Daily Inquiry. It was unprecedented. The perfect poison, how a scientist killed to save her legacy. By Elara Vance and Leo Madsen. The death of Aethelred CEO Alistair Finch was not a simple corporate assassination for profit, but the desperate act of a celebrated scientist, Dr. Anya Sharma, to conceal a deadly failure. New evidence, including a buried MHRA report and testimony of a manipulated investigation, reveals how Dr. Sharma poisoned Finch to prevent him from halting the release of a drug she knew could cause irreversible harm. The article was a tour de force. It combined Elara's forensic attention to detail and hard evidence with Leo's compelling, narrative-driven prose. It laid bare the entire sordid affair. The dangerous drug, the buried audit, the sophisticated poisoning, and the cunning frame-up of an innocent man and a rival journalist. It was a confession of their own failures, their rivalry, and how they were manipulated, ultimately culminating in their alliance to uncover a greater truth. The fallout was immediate and seismic. Dr. Anya Sharma was arrested at her home 2 hours after publication. The Aethelred merger was cancelled. The drug trial for A7-29 was permanently shut down. Weeks later, the professional shockwaves were still rippling. Leo, though not fired, was on probation, his reputation salvaged only by the stunning collaborative piece. Elara was hailed as the voice of integrity in a storm of scandal. They found themselves on the South Bank, watching the Thames flow sluggishly under a clearing sky. The rain had finally stopped. I owe you my career, Leo said, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. You owe me a great deal more than that, Elara replied, but there was no bite in her words. A small, reluctant smile played on her lips. But you're not entirely a lost cause. You have instincts. And you have a spine of steel, he countered. I needed that. They stood in a comfortable silence, the tension between them transformed into something else entirely, a hard-won respect, a shared history, a tentative, unexpected fondness. So what happens now? Leo asked. Back to the boxing match? Elara looked at him, at the man who had been her nemesis, her reluctant ally, and the catalyst for the most important story of her life. The city sprawled before them, a million new stories waiting to be uncovered. I don't know, she said, turning to face him fully. But the next high-profile story that breaks. I hear the Daily Inquiry and the Chronicle are thinking of starting a joint task force. Leo's eyebrows shot up in surprise, and then a genuine, uncalculated grin spread across his face. A partnership? Let's call it a permanent and deeply monitored alliance, Elara said, and this time her smile was full and true.